Father, we thank you for all that you do for the school corporation. Pray for our teachers and staff and our students, that you bless them. And, give you thanks for this time that we can meet and conduct the business of this school. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Okay, this meeting is called to order, and the first item on the agenda is under recognition. Dr. Clendenning.
Thank you, Mr. Vaught. We're going to have Mrs. Nally introduce our guests, and have the guests please come up front when you're recognized. Just a couple reminders for the students in the audience when you come up here. We'd love to know who brought you to today's event. So if it's your mom or your dad or your whatever friend, please introduce them. Use mom and dad's name, and this is who brought me tonight. So we can say thank you to them as well, because we know that parents also help along the way when students get recognized. And this is our time to say thank you to both the student and the parent. So, Mrs. Nally.
Sure. First, we'd like to recognize and congratulate Senior Nicholas Wallace on recently earning the distinction of Eagle Scout. Come on up, Nicholas. This honor is a recognition of his character, hard work, and dedication over many years. The process includes an extensive service project that the Scout plans, organizes, leads, and manages. So we'll also want to hear about your project. Okay.
My Eagle Scout project was at Blue Heron Park. It was outdoor exercise equipment focused towards the elderly. Anyone can use it. The idea was to put it there so adults who are taking their kids to play on the park equipment have something to do, and the location of it also gives people a variety of exercise equipment, I guess, to use while they're on the running trail as well.
And what are your future plans? What's next year look like for you?
I'd like to go to college. I want to do something with business finance, but I'm not entirely sure yet. And I'm not sure where I'd like to go to college.
All right.
Parents?
My parents are Lisa Wallace and Mike Wallace.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. What a great achievement. We're going to get a picture with Mr. Vaught. Look right here. Now you know what paparazzi feels like, right?
Next, we had 4 sophomore band students who toured Europe over the summer as members in the American Ambassadors of Music. They were nominated by James Toole in their 8th grade year. The band is organized through Ball State University. Help me congratulate Abby Parrish, Robbie Knight, Eric Wallflower, and Austin Crover. How do I say that?
Abby, Robbie, Austin. I forgot to give out my pencil last one. Here's a pencil for you. I know you guys really want these. That's why I did. So, just LeBron pencils. I was talking to Mrs. Betts one time. She thought it'd be nice to get Dr. Clinton thinks I'm smart, so sharp. So that's what the pencils are. So you can use them in your schoolwork. But talk a little about your trip to Europe.
So I played the bass clarinet. My name is Eric, and we got to tour in 7 different countries while we were there. And it was really awesome because, going to Europe is pretty cool. And it was an amazing opportunity that I'll remember for a really long time. And my mom brought me.
I'm Austin, and I play the flute. My parents, Glenna Crover and Justin Crover, helped pay for the trip, obviously. My father, Justin, went with me to go, as did Robbie's father. It would be a great vacation. A great vacation.
Which city did you enjoy the most?
Rothenburg, Germany, the pork chop city.
All right.
Hi, my name is Robbie Knight. I play the trumpet, and my dad, Tyler, brought me here tonight. This trip was amazing. There's so many things you can experience, and how many people our age get to do stuff like this, so it was a really great opportunity.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I play the clarinet, and my parents, Amy Parrish and Ryan Parrish, helped pay for the trip. And my favorite part was Switzerland. So.
All right, well, congratulations. We're going to get a picture with everybody. Thank you very much. That will conclude the recognition. For all of you who have never attended a board meeting before, this is a good time to segue for the exit. If you want to stay, the exciting part is coming. We're going to have our teachers talking about instructional coaches. Project Lead the Way, which is a biomed class at the high school that we just started, is a really cool class. I would encourage you to stick around for that presentation. But if you want to leave, now's a good time. Mr. Carnes, I tried to get you help. Hey, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is under public and board comments. For the public, this would be to make comments on anything that is on the agenda. If anybody would like to do that, now's the time. If not, are there any board comments other than what we have below? If not, we'll start off
I
with
do have one.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. When we get to the consent agenda for the teacher evaluation plans, letter L, we did make one change to those earlier today through discussions and meeting with the principals. The evaluation plan really for teachers has stayed the same, but we just changed one word basically from announced visits to unannounced observations. So I just wanted to put that out there that we'll be sending an updated version to the state later this week.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vaught, also, Mrs. Sperling is ill, and so we'll need to move her superintendent's presentation to October. So we will not be having that today.
Okay, that's Mrs. Sperling.
Yeah, McKinney Vento update.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. The first item then would be Music Council.
Music Council just met this evening. A couple things to highlight. As part of the GEO bond, each of the band and the choir will be getting some sort of trailer to assist them in their transportation needs as they go to contests and functions. There is some very preliminary look at some additional storage space for those programs, both the band, choir, and the performing arts. So that would actually come here at some point in time if that moves forward. And I think those were the biggest items. There were a couple other items that we had that we didn't get to, but those are the main items to report on. The musical is first weekend in November, and schedule-wise, that's all I know about. I don't know about the other programs in terms of schedule.
Officers.
Okay. We did discuss SRO officers and how they interact with some of the programming. There are some functions that the band holds and the choir holds that would go beyond the SRO's responsibility. So conversation was around security, how do we handle that? And certainly for some of the larger functions that are school functions, there was some conversation about that. And so my recommendation there is that needed to get escalated to Mr. Sewell to have conversations relative to putting guidelines and policies, procedures relative to at what point in time does a particular function need a security officer. So that's some of the conversation. So that is active and more conversations need to be had.
Okay, thank you. The Athletic Council.
We did not meet this month.
Okay, thank you. Legislative Council.
We did not meet.
Okay, thank you. The Superintendent Strategic Task Force.
We have our first meeting of the year, October 3rd, is that right? Or is it 2nd? It's that Wednesday night, first Wednesday in October. We'll be meeting here in the LGI. We'll be looking ahead to Title IV grant with what we've done this year, and then also what we're projecting as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Next item is for the strategic plan projects.
We did meet a little over a week ago with all the subcommittee chairs for the employer of choice, and they are back up and running with their respective subcommittees, so that will begin happening. Just a reminder that we'll be back to you in spring with a recommendation from all subcommittees.
Okay, thank you. The communication committee,
We didn't meet this one.
still not talking?
We are. Communication committee, that's what we are.
Okay, thank you. Collective bargaining,
We did meet, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. Do you mind giving an update? Sorry.
We just met this evening. We have a plan that will be presented to the teachers tomorrow.
okay, thank you. Central 9, there was really nothing new to report there. RDC, there was a very good presentation there that affects the schools. Mr. Richards is here this evening to make a presentation later on in the meeting. Has to do with the Highway 31 corridor. All right, the next item on the agenda is under consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
It's been moved to approve. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the next item then, under superintendent reports, City of Franklin upcoming roads and infrastructure projects, Mr. Mark Richards.
Good evening, thank you. I was asked by Jeff Sewell to come in and talk about upcoming projects that the city is planning from a transportation standpoint. The first project I'd like to talk about is a bicycle pedestrian plan that is funded by the Indianapolis MPO. This is strictly a planning project. Oh, sorry about that. The first is a bicycle pedestrian plan. It's a planning project that will inventory all of our sidewalks and trails within the city of Franklin. It will plan for expansion of the system, and it will develop a maintenance program and a budget to perform all of that maintenance. The funding is 65-35, meaning that 65% of it is paid through planning dollars from the MPO. The total cost is $115,000, and we are in the process of sending out an RFQ for design or for development of that planning document, and we expect it to be completed in 2019. The next project, and by the way, I am talking about these chronologically. The next project is the Arvin Hurricane Eastview Roundabout. That is a 100% locally funded project with a cost of $1.65 million. We expect to bid the project in February of next year, and the construction schedule is from about April 1st through July 31st of next year. We will build that roundabout under traffic, which means that it will stay open. We will not close it completely. There may be partial closures of Hurricane Road. However, the Eastview Drive truck route will remain open. The next project is West Jefferson Street. That's from about the fairgrounds to Westview Drive. That is a trail and road reconstruction project. That's 80-20 funding with a total cost of about $1.7 million. The letting is scheduled for May 9th of next year, and the construction would start no earlier than July 1st and would be complete by the end of November. The next project, West Jefferson Street and Westview Roundabout project, is a 90-10 funded project. Total cost of $1.1 million. The letting date through NDOT for that project is January 15th of 2020. And the construction would be from June 1st of 2020 to July 31st of 2020, and it would be a full closure.
Where was that? I'm sorry.
Pardon
me? What intersection was that?
That is Westview Drive and West Jefferson Street. So that's one project that would definitely impact the school system. However, we are planning to do that construction during summer break as we did the Upper Shelbyville project. The next project is South Main Street. That's from the new bridge on South Main down to US 31. That's an 80-20 funded project. A total cost of about $3.5 million. That's also planned to let on January 15th of 2020. Construction would be from about mid-March of 2020 to the end of November of 2020. The next project, and you'll probably have a definite interest in this, we'd like to install school zone beacons at all of the school zones that would replace the signage that says basically for while children are present or during a certain time period. These beacons would be activated when school is in session, or actually when kids are being brought to school or walking to school or basically on their way in and on their way back home in the evening. That would eliminate some of the issues with the signage like when children are present, because that's it's very vague. So it's going to be much easier for enforcement if we have the beacons that are working and identifying when those reduced speeds are in effect. We are currently in the process of selecting the design consultant for that project. It's a 90-10 funded project, total cost of $300,000. We expect to let that project in July of 2022, and construction would be in September, October, and November of 2022. We would have an opportunity to move that project up should funding become available if other projects don't meet their schedules. The last project that I'd like to talk about, and you'll probably have the most interest in this, is the US 31 project. This will basically provide trails on both sides of US 31 from the south city limits to the north. That's roughly South Main Street all the way up to Israel Drive up in Knollwood. This is a project that we're working closely with NDOT on. Our agreement with them, and we don't actually have an agreement in place yet. I expect to have a draft of that agreement within the next few days. The city will pay for design costs and the state will pay for everything else. In addition to the trails, there will be significant changes to every intersection along that route. This is meant to improve some of the congestion that we're experiencing and reduce delays. Some of the modeling that's been done would indicates that it would cut travel time along that corridor roughly in half. The total cost of that is about $40 to $50 million. The state has applied for what's called a build grant. If they are successful in getting that, construction would be in 2021. If they're not successful, the project will be built anyway, starting probably in 2023, and it would be phased over probably a 2 or 3 year period. So if you have any questions, I'd be answer what I can.
Some of the payment for this would be coming from the TIF funds from that area. Right?
Yes, that's correct. The US 31 TIF, there's a North and a South US 31 TIF. The funding would come from that, and because there is not a sufficient balance in that TIF fund at this time, the intent would be to bond that TIF district.
Okay, and also then I know Richard Wirtz had brought up about the possibility of a pedestrian bridge over 31. And I think that he asked for just a ballpark or just a guess. And am I correct in thinking that you said you just guessed it, like $2.5 million for a pedestrian bridge, or you based it
Sure.
off of Greenwood, right?
Yeah, there was a project I was involved with at Greenwood about 10 years ago. That was a pedestrian bridge that would cross near the bowling alley and the old Kmart on the US 31. That cost at that time was about $2.5 million. That was the estimate. I would guess that it's probably gone up to maybe $3.5 million at this point. When you cross that many lanes of traffic and have to have that wide of a span, it really adds to the costs. Plus, you have to have enough right-of-way in order to build the ramps, in order to access the bridge. It's very costly. So we're going to make that attempt to have a pedestrian bridge included in the project. Whether we're successful or not, I don't know. And I think a lot of it will depend on who's willing to fund that.
I have a question about the TIF district. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. Does that, when you said the TIF will be bonded, is that a change from today? Does that change our funding? No.
It should not affect any school funding, no. The bond would just be bonding future income from that district that would come to the city.
So just pulling the thread, does that affect the whole circuit breaker scenario, because it's all of the taxable entities are included in that, and there's a cap for the community? So forgive me if I'm asking a question that's way out in left field, but I seem to recall that the summation of all of the taxable entities are rolled into the circuit breaker conversation.
They generally are, but I don't think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a city bond issuance, because that's coming out of the TIF area, would be impactful to us in our taxing district here.
That's correct. But what would happen is the possibility of reducing the piece that's diverted to the TIF fund would go away. In other words, your TIF dollars now would be pledged well into the future to retire these bonds, eliminating the possibility that the TIF takeaway might reduce at some point in the future. So I don't know if they're capturing the maximum amount now. I just don't know that. But that would be one potential impact, is that money's going to need to be set aside way into the future to service that debt.
Make sure I understand translating that in today's scenario, there's a possibility that the funds that the TIF district pulls off of all the taxable entities could theoretically reduce. Under that scenario, by bonding it, that means it's not going to reduce.
Well, it would not reduce below what was needed to pay the bonds.
Okay. Yeah,
Whether they're
understood.
pulling out the maximum they can now, I don't know. Whether more would need to be taken. I don't know if they've hit their cap. But yeah, I mean, if it's a bond, it's going to be a long-term bond, and you're going to have income to service that debt going well into the future.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, project Lead the Way.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Carnes. Mr. Carnes is a teacher here at the high school and is really the catalyst behind our whole Project Lead the Way initiative this past year. He came to me early, about this time last year, I think, and asked about what interests we might have as a district looking at biomedical sciences at the high school. And the more we talked and we met with the reps, we found out more about the elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school programs all. And so now we are full-blown Project Lead the Way. So just thank you for starting this conversation. And he's going to share with you tonight a little bit about the class he's teaching this year.
Am I in control of this, or?
You are in control.
Sorry. Okay. Well, here, let me take this off. I really appreciate the invitation to come to the school board meeting. This is kind of unusual. I've never experienced anything where I was invited to come to a meeting like this and present something. So, and I'm in front of kids all day long, and I'm totally comfortable standing in front of people talking as long as they're high school age. But as soon as they're adults, it's like, this is different. Okay.
High school age.
Yeah, I'm pretending you're very young right now. Everyone's very young. All right, so first of all, if you've never heard of Project Lead the Way, it is actually a company out of Indianapolis, and schools across the country have adopted the various programs that they offer. They have an elementary program called Launch, and it's all STEM, related things. So science, math, engineering, designing, building things. I haven't seen it in action because I'm here, but I would love to see what's going on at the elementary schools. Hopefully the kids are really enjoying that. The middle school program has a Gateway program, and I believe that's coming in the future, right?
It started this year.
It did start this year. Well, that's
Robotics.
great. Okay, cool. And then here at the high school, Project Lead the Way has computer science programs, they have engineering programs, and they have the biomedical science program. This is the only one that we offer from Project Lead the Way here so far. So let me give you a little rundown of this program. There are 4 classes. We have implemented the very first year of it, and we're going to implement, I believe, the next class 1 year at a time. Unless we get aggressive maybe and try to add 2 next year. I don't know if that'll be possible, but a lot of the kids that are taking biomed right now, especially if they're not freshmen, are really mad because they want to now all 4 years and they want that chance. So if we can speed it up and add more, that would be really neat. But the Principles of Biomedical Science class is what I'm teaching, and Kelly Biro, who couldn't be here, she's also teaching this class with me. So we have a PLC, and we actually have a 3rd period prep that we share this semester, which is really nice. So we spend a lot of time together, and we spend a lot of time planning and making sure that we're on the same page and we're getting the hang of this. In the future, the 2nd year class is called Human Body Systems. That is very similar to what we offer now in anatomy and physiology. And I believe the plan will be to actually end anatomy and physiology and just go with human body systems. I'm teaching all 3 anatomy classes that we have this year. Just trying to build on that and just have all these medical related classes for the kids, because they really get into anything that's related to a medical career, doctors, nurses, and we're learning about the careers. And that's what's neat about this whole program, is it's tying it all back to careers. We have career journals that we actually complete from time to time. So they've learned what a 911 operator does and what educational experience they have, how much they get paid, crime scene investigator, a coroner versus a medical examiner. They've learned what the difference was between the two today. 3rd year class is medical interventions. So I don't know as much about these future classes here, but for example, the medical intervention one, they would be thinking about medical devices and how they would help, fix some sort of medical condition. So I believe one of the things they get to do is design and build a prosthetic arm or something like that. The biomedical innovation class, the 4th year class, I believe is supposed to incorporate an internship where the students actually have a chance to get out of the building and go and gain some experience in a real medical profession. Okay. I put this in the slide because when we went to core training at IUPUI, the School of Science professors that talked to us had said that they are finding that students that come to IUPUI in the School of Science who have taken these classes, they have much better lab skills and content knowledge, and they're engaged, and they're just they're really seeing a lot of benefit. IUPUI, I know, does this for sure, but if all these classes have an end of course assessment, so at the end of the year they'll take this test, and if they get a certain, I don't know the scale, but it's like if they get a 6 or higher on the end of a course assessment, IUPUI will give them dual credit, college credit for these classes. So, and apparently they get some sort of letter after they graduate from here, and any classes they've taken with this and gotten that 6 or higher, they can use that at IUPUI. I don't know if all the rest of the colleges are doing that and offering that, but I think that's going to be a growing thing where the students will be able to go to their college and maybe get some credits. Okay, so I threw in some pictures here. That is Kelly Byro, and that's me. This is when we went to 2 weeks of summer core training. So Project Lead the Way, they want to make sure that the teachers teaching these classes know what they're doing. And so we went through 80 hours of training over the summer at IUPUI, and basically we did a lot of the same labs that we're doing with the kids right now. So it was just a very intense crash course of what our students will do all year long. I put this in here. I wanted to make sure I remembered to thank everyone who has helped implement this class. From talking to Deb in that original conversation, and then somehow we ended up in a meeting with Mr. Ahaus and Mrs. Maddox and Mr. Martin, and then Dr. Clendenning. Then we were talking on the phone with Project Lead the Way rep, and we were visiting other schools and seeing what it was like, and then we were doing it. And it was amazing, because the one thing I'd heard was how expensive it was. And so with all the grant opportunities out there, I think we managed to pull that off. So thank you for doing that. And Matt Sprout, getting all the computers. All the STEM teachers have their own laptops, which is great because I'm in 2 classrooms now. So I use my laptop and not the desktops. We had to take the laptops to training with us, and you got all the software ready for us. And even the guidance counselors, all the guidance counselors at the high school, and when we got the course information out there, nobody was like, "What is this?" and who's supposed to take this class? So we got some advertisement to the kids, and the counselors helped explain what it was and encouraged it. And for a first ever class, we have 5 classes of this. We have like 150 students who wanted to sign up and do this, and I just thought that was amazing. So it was very cool. All right, so what is this class about? Principles of Biomedical Science. It's all about Anna Garcia. She's 38 years old. She was found dead in her home. This is first day of school. This was the very fun first day of school because we set up a crime scene tape, and you have all the evidence markers, and you have the outline of her body. There was blood found, there was hair, fingerprints, there was a syringe, 4 unknown pills, there was a glass of orange juice spilled on the floor, there was vomit, and it was quite a scene. Overturned table there, and of course we left the door open, so students walking by that weren't even in the class were like, "What is going on?" So it was a lot of fun. So this is literally what the course is about, is we will spend the entire school year trying to figure out why she died. And it's hard to imagine how in the world for 180 days of school could you keep that going. And well, Anna's got a lot of things wrong with her. So we're going to learn about all those things. Right now we're in the first unit, which is the forensics part of it. And so they've learned about fingerprints, and they've learned about hair and blood type, and they've done a lot of labs. They really do so many things. There's so much reading. There's so much writing and researching, just solving problems. And right over here, I've got a picture with all the kids. Of course, they have an online account to this resource that we have, but they get information from that online account. They spend the work that they produce is we can't have them keep a 3-ring binder, and that's like their case report file. And there's case evidence, and there'll be autopsy reports, and there'll be they have their own lab notebook. So this is a picture of a student's lab notebook, and I've actually been finding, like, without really showing them how to be so neat and organized with it, I'm finding that they are really neat and organized. The kids seem to be taking a lot of ownership in their own notebook. I mean, there's a beautiful data table in here and a really cool graph and writing. It's really good. This was a lab that they did identifying an unknown substance because we found 4 mysterious pills. We didn't know what it was. Turns out it's now aspirin, so she wasn't on drugs. This is blood spatter right here. Because we had blood spatter found, we wanted to know if possibly she was hit in the head by a suspect, or did she collapse and hit her head on the table. And so by doing a lab where you drop the blood from different heights, you can then create a graph and use that graph to then tell, like, the blood that we found at the crime scene, what was the diameter of that blood, and does that indicate that it was dropped from table height, or did it fall from higher up? So they did all that and wrote a formal lab report. So a lot of writing. This is sort of the outline of the whole year here. So we're in Unit 1, the mystery right now. So at the end of the mystery, we'll determine the manner of death. Okay, there's different manners of death: natural death, accidental death, homicide. We do have 4 persons of interest. Anna's ex-husband, Alex, he was on Anna's, he was still a beneficiary of her life insurance policy. So, and he has a new wife. She's also a suspect. She is, I believe, pregnant with Alex's child. Oh, there's drama in here. So there's drama. But if you look at the next units here, we get into diabetes. So if you remember, the crime scene had orange juice. It had a syringe. We don't know what's in that syringe yet, but why was she needing orange juice or wanting orange juice? Why did she have that syringe, and what was in it? Unit 3 is sickle cell disease, which is a genetic disorder. So we'll get into genetics. Heart disease. So this is a heart that Kelly Byro and I dissected over the summer. And so I have actually, let's see, I want to say like something like 20 pails of hearts in my cabinet ready to go for the year. We'll do an infectious disease unit, and then by the end, they will do, we'll have the final bit of evidence in the autopsy report to make a cause of death. By the way, I don't know if any science people in here, but this is called gel electrophoresis. And they just learned about this process. And it's, if you've ever heard of DNA profiling, or sometimes the old term was DNA fingerprint, if you have DNA at a crime scene and you have DNA samples from various people, you can run this process, and then the pattern that the DNA makes from the crime scene, if it matches the DNA from any of the people, then you've identified whose DNA was at the crime scene. So we will actually do a real gel electrophoresis lab. This is something that most students would ever get to do unless you were in college. This equipment is expensive, and that grant money, I mean, that made this possible. So this is going to be really, really neat for the kids. And that's about it.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Carnes, I have to tell you that I attended the lab session for Ms. Byro's class on blood splatter. It was a very engaging class, and all the kids were trying to figure it out. So phenomenal. And I would just say the one thing that I noticed immediately was student engagement. You know, Ms. Byro was up presenting information. The kids did have their notebooks out, and their laptops are looking ahead to see what was going on. It was very, very engaging class, so good job.
We had a neat tie-in today in class, my 6th period. They learned some social studies. So we learned the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner. And a coroner is an elected official. And they thought that was interesting, that almost anybody can just run for coroner and get elected, and then, you know, what do you do? And so we got on the Johnson County coroner's website, and Craig Lutz is our coroner. And it just, we're just kind of interested in that. And then they did not know, this is weird, but they did not know, and they learned this today, that Franklin is the county seat of Johnson County. More than half of them did not understand that. So they learned some social studies today in biomed class. I said, you know, Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Indianapolis is like the capital of Indiana. Well, Franklin is like the county of is the capital of Johnson County. They're like, what? So, all right, social studies.
Of course, that big building in the middle of town really.
Yeah, courthouse. Oh, here.
Thank you.
Interesting to ask his class. The other statutory function of the coroner, most people don't realize that, is it is the coroner who has the legal authority to arrest the sheriff.
See.
There you go.
There you go. Didn't
Thank
know
you.
that. Didn't know that Franklin was the county.
I knew we were the county seat.
Well, Mr. Thompson and I won't be here at the end of the school year, so please let us know how it ends up.
Well, of course, as I'm not a scientist, but as an engineer, I'm wondering when can I take the class? So, yeah.
And that could be a summer quest class for adults.
We'll think about that, yeah. We got one registrant.
We do. 2 in the back, 3.
So we got a number of science geeks in the room. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next item is instructional coaches. Mrs. Brown-Nally.
I'm really proud tonight to be here to recognize what we're doing with STEM at the high school, but to also recognize our coaches. These were my 2 big projects where I spent a lot of time last spring. So it's just so, I'm just very proud of how they have come to fruition. And I learned a long time ago from a mentor that as a leader is only as good as the people with whom she surrounds herself. So I've made really sure to surround myself with the great people that are in this room tonight to really make these things happen. So thank you again, Jeff, for coming and sharing. And at this time, I'd like to bring up our instructional coaches. Another thing I learned from a good mentor, a great mentor, was pick the right people, then get out of the way. And so Denise and I were meeting with Ian Wilson. We were coaching the coach in a meeting this week or last week and talking about this presentation. And Ian said, well, I have something I can share with you. I already have a PowerPoint. See if you want to use this. And Denise and I kind of looked at each other and said, why don't you just present this at the board meeting? So Ian is going to present the PowerPoint for tonight. But I would like for these fine people to introduce themselves and let you know what school they're coaching this year.
Carly Hoagland, and I'm at Union Elementary.
Beth Hoeing, and I am at Northwood Elementary.
Julie Dawson, and I am at Creekside Elementary.
Megan Green, and I am in all buildings, K through 6, as the instructional technology coach.
Melissa McCain, proudly at the high school.
Mandy Wells, and I am at CBIS.
Ann Wilson, and I'm at the middle school.
And then we also have Carla Taylor, who is at Webb, and she had 3 kids that had to be in 3 different places tonight for activities. So she was dividing and conquering with her husband. Mm-hmm. And is there anyone else? Ray. Oh, Ray Lane is he had a grumpy baby and after having shots today, so he needed to be home. But he is the high school and middle school instructional technology coach, and our one dose of testosterone. And Alyssa Bontrager, who is the Needham instructional coach.
And before we give it away to Ann, I'm Denise Rodenhus, and I'm ecstatic to have all of these wonderful, powerful teachers who are impacting our instruction. So it's an exciting journey that we're on this year. And I can attest, Deb worked very hard to get all the funding and to get all the right people so that our students are learning. Okay, with that, Ann, we're going to let you take it away. Or did you?
Nope, just like Jeff, who spent 2 weeks at IUPUI, this group, along with our administrators and Dr. Clendenning and I, spent 2 weeks at KU in Kansas. So training. So we had a lot of great professional development, which really set the groundwork for our group working this year.
So I'm Ann Wilson, and I can't take all credit for this slide presentation. It's short. Julie Dawson, one of the coaches, started it, and the beauty of the coaching is that we're talking to each other all the time. We are communicating on every possible realm there is. And so this is something Julie shared, and I thought, oh, I like this, and I just played around with it. And so it's team playing constantly. We're talking to each other. Schools are talking to each other. Mandy and I are talking to each other. There's a social studies teacher at the middle school who wanted to really communicate with what's happening at Custer Baker, and it was so easy for me to start talking to Mandy, who went to the principal, who came back, and we've got a plan. And so the beauty of coaches is that we also are talking with schools. So the first of 5 slides is the impact cycle, and I really want to focus on the word impact. What a powerful word. I mean, impact means to make a difference, and that's what coaches want to do. They want to make a difference. They want to help teachers become better teachers, and that in play will impact the learners. So that is what coaching is going to be about. With that, there are 2 different ways to coach. You can coach lightly. It's called surface coaching, not much of an impact, but it's important. So if teachers don't have time to maybe look into resources, this is something, I'm kind of can't see some people. This is something that is important to do, is to just help them find resources. That's just surface coaching. There's not much of a relationship, but it's important. And then the other type of coaching is deep coaching, and that's when a relationship begins. And that's when the word cycle comes into play. And so with the impact cycle, with the cycle, you're deep coaching. And deep coaching means you're going to make a bigger impact. The only way to get to deep coaching is to actually work on trust. And teachers are not going to open their doors to you if they don't trust you. And so that's one of the biggest things a coach has to do, is to let the teachers know that you're not their evaluator. You're a team player. You want to help them, and you want to impact student growth. And so if you establish trust and you start the cycle, there are 3 steps to that cycle, and it's you start, and the font is pretty small, so I'm going to go to the first is, well, identify. So at the top, identify, learn, and improve. So the first step to the cycle is to identify. And so for the next slide, when you're identifying, you really want to get it, you want to talk to the teachers about, why do you want me here as your coach? What do you want me to do? And you're really looking for a clear picture of reality, be it a video, which is what we're encouraging. A lot of teachers are hesitant, but it takes time. You want them to trust you. You want them to know that this is something that is a helpful tool. We're not evaluating you. You could also just simply observe and pull up data that way for teachers. When you finally get an idea of what the teachers want to do, we're focused on 3 areas. One would be engagement, one would be behavior, and one would be achievement. Many times if you have children engaged, you don't have the behavior. So there's a lot in play with that. And once you decide, then you go ahead and start talking about what is your goal going to be and what strategies are you going to use. So you identify. The next is you learn. You try strategies, you adjust strategies. You say, well, let's talk about the goal. Maybe we need to tweak it a little bit. You support them in any way you can. You will co-teach. You can model. You can take their class so they can observe colleagues or peers. So that's the learning part of the cycle. To improve is obviously what we all want to do as educators. And you just want to constantly keep in touch with teachers to confirm their direction, to review their progress, and to plan next actions. So that would be the improve cycle. Coaches, do you have anything to add? Okay, so at the very end, I just came up with a quick 1.5 minute why everyone needs a coach. And I'm not sure about the sound here, but. Okay.
Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. My bridge coach, Sharon Osberg, says there are more pictures of the back of her head than anyone else's in the world. Sorry, Sharon. There you go. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve.
Over the years, I've received so many different kinds of advice, I don't know where to start. One that comes to mind is to have a coach. Our board member in 2002, John Doerr, said, you need a coach. And I said, well, I don't need a coach. I'm an established CEO. Why would I need a coach? Is something wrong? He said, no, you need a coach. Everybody needs a coach. So Bill Campbell became my coach and has served Google very well. Every famous athlete, every famous performer has somebody who's a coach. Somebody who can watch what they're doing and say, is that what you really meant? Did you really do that? They can give them perspective. The one thing people are never good at is seeing themselves as others see them. A coach really, really helps.
That's it? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is for the FCS enrollment in 2019 financial forecast. Dr. Clendenning.
Thank you. I'll just give the enrollment, and I'm going to turn to Mr. Mercer to talk a little about the financial forecasting for 2019. ADM Day is going to be on Friday, and right now it looks like we are going to be down students from last year, about 40 students. Looking at that, a couple things that we've noticed. First, the kindergarten class is extremely small compared to all others from grade 1 to grade 12. We're down about 25 kids in kindergarten. So that'd be one thing to look at. And there are a couple other small things. We do have some positive things. The high school actually is actually up from last year. And so as we look at some of the data points, we'll call through to find out a little bit more about that. But obviously, the kindergarten class being down is one of the things that we did notice. So I'll turn to Mr. Mercer. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the financial perspective.
I wish I could tell you why we're down students, because there's nothing in Franklin that indicates we should be down students, but that's the way life works. I hope it's an anomaly. You may recall that last year we were up 26. This year we'll be down somewhere, as Dr. Clendenning suggested, in the 40 to 45 range. It will impact funding for next year, so we'll have to figure that out. At this point, if we stop the world today, we'd have about $263,000 in new funding from the state of Indiana. So that's kind of where we're at on that front. As we always do, we'll figure it out and move on. Be happy to entertain any questions, or we're about to get the most exciting part of tonight's agenda.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the next one? Okay, which is at this time, the board is holding a public hearing on the proposed 2019 budget. The public hearing has been advertised in the Daily Journal and posted, all required as required by statute. A copy of the notice is attached to the board agenda. The hearing is now open. This is a hearing on the 2019 budget for expenditure during next budget year. So if there's anybody here from the public that would like to make comments on this, this is now the time to do so. Seeing none, I declare the hearing closed. Mr. Mercer?
I would be happy to pick up and take off from here. I will tell you, just because I get to be up front for a moment, a bit of an editorial comment relative to Project Lead the Way and to the instructional coaches. I can't tell you how excited I am for our kids. And, this is a culmination of a budget. That's why you do what you do. And one item that you probably are not aware of, but as Jeff mentioned on the funding piece, Deb worked really hard along with Dr. Clendenning to try to get the state grant, which we did receive. We ended up funding from the innovations dollars about an additional $40,000 to be able to get the middle school and some of the other levels started with equipment. And we're faced with that same thing again next year if we advance this program. Brannigan Foundation will probably help us a little bit, but we'll be faced with the same thing on the innovation side of life. And I did want to tell you too, because you hear all this systemic continuous improvement stuff, I was able to bludgeon Denise Rodenhuse into a control plan on the instructional coaches, which nearly killed her to go through that process. But we did it.
We did.
And I have to tell you, in all the time that I've been here, I'm not sure I've been more excited about any single thing we've ever done than what they're doing right now. And that's a great group of folks that'll do great things. Okay, so on to the excitement for this evening. This is the budget Form 3 that I outlined to you last month. Nothing has changed on that. Just to highlight for the community as much as anything, we are changing the way that funding is done in the state of Indiana. This time next year, we will have no general fund. We'll have no capital projects or bus replacement or transportation. It all becomes education and operations. So this is a very new way of looking at that. We have it split out very differently. So that was what Mr. Vaught alluded to on the public hearing. There are two items that we need to take action on tonight. And the first one is the approval of a capital projects plan, which is really kind of interesting when the capital projects plan is going away, but we still have to approve a capital projects plan. So if you figure that out, you let me know, and then we'll all know. So attached to the board, to the business office website as required by state law, there's a lot of information. The capital projects plan is included. Natalie was kind enough to put all of the stuff in here that you might like to look at or maybe not at some point. But this is the capital projects portion of the operations deal. So what I'm asking tonight is approval of the 29 plan, which is included in the entire operations fund. So I'm here tonight to request approval on that one.
It's been moved for approval. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I am required then to do the second part of that. We've always done this every year, but it's just always been standalone by itself. This year it's not. It's embedded in another fund. I'm also requesting your permission, without any changes from last month, to adopt the 2019 bus replacement plan.
Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I am here to request one additional item, and that is an additional appropriation. I have a resolution before you to transfer $150,000 out of the rainy day fund to place in the general fund to take care of the various types of testing that Jeff Sewell led us through on the whole Needham Web issue. At the moment, Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have amassed somewhere in the vicinity of $60,000 to $70,000. The reason that it's at 150 is I don't really know where we're going from this point, maybe nowhere. If we don't need the money moved out of rainy day, we won't move it. But if we do, this prevents me from having to go through this and you go through this twice. So I am requesting your approval of an additional appropriation in the amount of $150,000, which I'll then send to the DLGF.
I hear a motion. It's been moved for approval. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Next item is e-learning days. Dr. Clendenning.
Thank you, Mr. Vaught. Last month, we I previewed the thoughts from March, again, about e-learning days, where we would take e-learning days for inclement weather from January to May for us to pilot this idea. Mrs. Green and Mr. Lane will be the key leaders from the teacher standpoint that make sure they have Google Classroom ready to go and communicate with our students and parents. A couple of highlights about e-learning days. We would take them in lieu of a full day being out of school up to 4 days next semester. If on the 5th day we would have a bad weather day, we'll actually come back and make that day up. Because I think as we look forward, this is something we need to work with and see what's going to happen for us in terms of that. The e-learning day is also not in real time. So if we have e-learning, the kids will be doing activities that day, but their work, they'll get a 1 week reprieve to turn in all of their work. And that's how they'll be counted in attendance that day. Teachers are required to have access for communication to the students during the day of e-learning. And they'll need to be checking their emails at least once an hour and getting back in a timely manner with questions along the way. And there's some other things that may come out, but this will be a good chance for us to experience it. We did have to apply to the state. The state said yes, pending your approval, since it's a local decision. So I'm here asking for your approval for e-learning days.
It's been moved for approval. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I did have a question on this. Are we approving this for just this next semester, or?
We are approving it just for next semester, and then the calendar committee is meeting. When are you meeting?
September 20th.
September 20th, and they'll be looking at that in terms of next year. But I would assume that we come back and do the same thing again. We will report at the end of the year on the success. Hopefully, we won't have to have any.
Right.
But if we do, then we'll come back and report the success to look to next year. So yes, I do think it will be future, but this is for this year.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is board and administrative comments. First from the board. Any comments?
I have one.
As some of you may know, I've been on the board almost 15 years, and for the majority of those 15 years, I have hammered into whomever would listen to me about process and about repeatable processes, about continuous improvement. As I come to a close of my tenure of serving as a board member, I am ecstatic at what I heard tonight with two outstanding examples of continuing to improve what we do. The improvement in science and how we move forward in teaching science and math combined with social studies. So thank you for throwing that in. Is very impressive. But perhaps the most, I guess enjoyment for me is I've hammered on folks like Deb for the better part of 10 years. She's finally got it. So well done, Deb. But what you guys are doing with, I can't remember your 3-letter acronym of that, continuing that improvement cycle of making a teacher better is exactly what guys like myself and Andy live through on a daily basis. And so personally, I just want to say thank you deeply for identify, learn, and improve. In my world and Andy's world, it's plan, do, study, adjust, or whatever we call it, Six Sigma. It is all rooted in the same stuff of becoming better at what we do. And you guys have epitomized that significantly tonight. So I just wanted to say a heartfelt thanks for really making my day, my 15 years as a board member. So thank you to your group and to Project Lead the Way at becoming better at what we do. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the board? Administrative, Mr. Sewell, School Safety Community Forum.
So good evening. We are going to look ahead here in just a minute at the calendar. And one of the first things on the calendar is our safety forum next Wednesday, the 19th at 6 o'clock, I believe, in this room. And what we did to gather our topics for the safety forum is we held a thought exchange. And that's the tool we worked with you folks to bring to the corporation. Allows us to present a topic or a question to the community and get their reaction to that topic. And that's what we did in the case of setting the topics for the Community Safety Forum. We asked the community, what topics would you like to discuss at the Safety Forum? And they told us. So we had 332 people who responded to that thought exchange survey. They shared 149 thoughts with us. 5,973 ratings were given to those thoughts, and that created a ranking that of those thoughts that kind of gives us a good sense of what is the community thinking about right now. What are the topics that are of most interest to them as we prepare ourselves to hold that community safety forum. So what we are doing this week in preparation for next week is we've taken the top 20 of those. There's some overlap and related themes in those, and we've broken those out into a few big picture topics that we plan to use to guide our conversation for next Wednesday. So it's been a great application of the Thought Exchange tool, another great way for us to gather input from the community and use that to really provide a targeted discussion at the forum next Wednesday.
Thank you. Next item is the Franklin Community Schools SRO job description. Mr. Sewell.
This past week, we got some great news from the city of Franklin. They have assigned a second full-time SRO to our schools. So we are trending ahead of where we expected to be in terms of on our way by January of this year to be in a position to have our 3 secondary schools all with a full-time SRO in the building. So very excited about that. We've expressed our appreciation to Mayor Barnett and Chief Cochran for that. I know that they've had to stretch a little bit to get us there. But again, they are a great partner with us in working towards making sure we're doing everything we can on the school safety front to really just provide that safe environment for our students. So the thing that I've highlighted here on the agenda for tonight is we have applied for a grant to fund a third SRO position starting in January. And what I've put in front of you is that as a job description for that position. We envision that person reporting to us and being paid by us, but also being reporting in a sense as a special reserve officer to the city of Franklin and accountable to all of their procedures and their police powers and all of that stuff. But really, as our employee, we really want to leverage their skills and experiences to help us drive and coordinate the implementation of our school safety plans. I can certainly use help with that, with all of the different things on my plate. And I'm excited that we have the opportunity to bring another resource officer into the corporation starting in January. So would welcome any feedback you have on the job description, but wanted to put that in front of you and say this is what we thought through what that position will look like for us. And again, we look forward to having that resource starting with us very soon.
Thank you. Next item is under calendar, Dr. Clendenning.
Thank you, Mr. Vaught. Just a few highlights for the rest of September and leading into October. The safety forum that Mr. Sewell mentioned will be in the LGI room beginning at 6 p.m. on the 19th. We will have executive session for the Board of School Trustees on the 24th for professional development. That's going to begin at 5:30, and that will be a light dinner that will be provided during that time. Looking 5:30 to 7, I think is the time frame that we've looked at in terms of that. Mrs. Holman is not here today, unfortunately. The rain got the best of her at her house, and she had to deal with an issue there. But she does know that you're coming to visit her on the 28th at 7:15, and we'll be done by 9 o'clock on that day. And then it is October 3rd at 6:30 to 7:30 in the LGI room again for Superintendent's Task Force. We're going to hear a little bit more about Project Lead the Way on that, what Ray's doing with Mr. Lane's doing with instructional and technology coaching, and then also looking at some mental health aspects of that Title IV grant where we've partnered with Trauma Informed for our school administrators and looking ahead to the future. And then last thing, in October, is to highlight October 15th through the 19th, we will be on fall break.
Okay, thank you. Next item is for public comments. This can be comments on anything you would like to speak on.
I hope that the e-learning will be a great thing because I know last year, the last time we had the calendar committee, we had a couple items we tried to do, especially for high schoolers and prom, but unfortunately last year because of the weather, that had to be taken up. But so hopefully if it's a success, I'm hoping that it will be used and something that will protect some of those dates. But actually what I come up here for was to discuss the situation of pickup and drop off of kids at Creekside. I am there Fridays getting my kids in the afternoon. Right now there's 3 lanes going in and out of that area, but the way that the situation is for the pickup and especially for the backdoor pickup, the line goes all the way out to 44. I would love for an idea or something to be looked at for adding a 4th lane. And that is because this year I've noticed more cars are coming from the south direction of 44, having to turn in. And I'm not looking forward to seeing an accident there. You have cars that have already picked up their kids from the back door coming out, and you have cars going around the line to get back into the line for the front door pickup. And you have all of a sudden you have 2 cars trying to come out while a car is trying to come in. That's not a good thing. I think it would be feasible from my drafting background to maybe try to put something to the north, add a 4th lane there. The only thing I can see that would be a problem right now visibly is you would have to relocate a street light that is at that intersection for the buses and or for the parking area. I think the fire hydrant is far enough away that if you go that direction, we should not cause a problem. But I think it's something that needs to be looked at. I'm not wanting to change anything. I'm just looking at the safety and just adding that situation so that if you're going to have 2 lanes of one front door, back door, you need to have 2 lanes coming out so that there's a chance for someone to come in and not cause an accident. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Thompson?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.